There is one habit that is slowly killing you. There's no wonder that today, in this environment, with this habit rampant, heart disease is way up, cancer is way up, diabetes is way up. These are the killers of today. And all of us are on a path for destruction until we learn to tame this. Today, we're talking with Harvard Medical School faculty member, Dr. Jeffrey Rediger, author of the book Cured, about 3 things we can do to counteract this deadly habit and live our healthiest, happiest, most vibrant lives. Look, if you love to feel good as much as I do, hit that subscribe button to get happiness insights every single week. Welcome to the Good Mood Revolution. Today, we're talking with a man who has studied how to be the healthiest, most vibrant version of yourself. His name is Dr. Jeffrey Rediger. He's a faculty member at Harvard Medical School. He's the medical director of McLean Southeast Adult Psychiatry. And his groundbreaking book, Cured, I am a huge, huge fan of. He's given a talk on this book with the Sophia Institute coming up on March 12th and March 19th. I will be tuning in. But this book has studied people who have created spontaneous remission, which is miraculously being healed from terminal illnesses. And in the book, he says, today's miracles are tomorrow's normal. And he has a theory that if we study people that are healing from terminal illnesses, that there could be clues and there could be patterns. And of course, he's identified clues and patterns about how we can live our most healthy, vibrant lives. His work has been featured on Oprah as well as Dr. Oz many times. And I'm so excited to welcome him to the show. Jeff, welcome to Good Mood Revolution.
Thank you for having me.
What I find so fascinating about your work is that there is actually a way to live a healthier way than we've been kind of putting out these fires the current medical system has been doing. And there's a way that we could live where we don't have to get into the dumpster fire in the first place.
Yes, that is really true. I mean, I feel so privileged that I have had the privilege to study these people who are really the Olympians of health and well-being. They're really the flagships for where health and well-being can go. And so to study these individuals who've overcome such a heavy burden of illness and watch their eyes light up as they speak with me about what has meant so much to them in this journey. And it's changed everything for me, both personally and professionally.
What's one of the most extraordinary healing stories that you've encountered that still kind of gives you chills?
Well, I think I started Cured with Claire because Claire's story was such a life-changing story for me personally. She was such a kind of every person in my mind. She was not this big executive or highly educated person. She was just this woman with a loving heart who I felt is like so many of us. She was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, back in 2008, I believe, and then lived for many years. And she decided that even though she's somebody who believed in science, she usually did what her doctors suggested for her to do. She decided that to go through the Whipple surgery and have much of her gut removed as a way of dealing with pancreatic cancer just wasn't the path for her. And so it was a very clean case in the sense that pancreatic cancer is such a fatal illness. And if you don't catch it very quickly and do the surgery, then people die basically 100% of the time. She was in her, I think, late 40s, if I remember right. And she was devastated. And she's a very sober person. She went and read a lot about it. She declined the surgery only because to live the kind of quality of life she would have had after having much of her gut removed just wasn't the life that she wanted to have. And so she declined the surgery. She declined the chemo and the radiation and just decided to do as well as she could with the time she had left. She expected to die.
How much time were the doctors saying that she had most likely?
They thought that she had about a year.
About a year. And so she just said, I'm gonna have the best year I can have without all the treatment.
Yeah. So she fully expected to die. She made a lot of preparations for that to get her life in order. She especially tried to come to terms with some of the relationships that had been challenging for her. And so she decided she wanted to forgive her mother. She felt that she'd carried some of the toxicity from those self-criticisms in her body, and she wanted to try to rid herself of those. And again, she wasn't trying to do this to live. She wanted to just finish well. But as I've seen in so many other individuals' lives, this also became true for Claire, that this doorway of giving up an old life and doing the work to step into a new kind of life that was free from some of the self-criticism and the self-loathing that she had lived with from past trauma, that created a doorway that then became a new life, and time began to go by.
It sounds like she made some changes with her emotions and with some grudges that she had, especially with her mom. Yep, forgiveness sounds like a piece of her path. Nutritional diet changes were a piece of her path. What were some of the other lifestyle changes that she made? Was she one of the people that went to Brazil?
No, she didn't. That's another reason why I used her. She wasn't a wealthy woman who could afford expensive treatments and all that. She did what she could do with what she had. And so she wanted to prioritize her relationships. She eliminated most sugar, but she still had these wonderful celebrations with her friends. She tried to get out of fight or flight. She knew that she had been bathing her body with not only self-criticism, but in the stress hormones for many years that had kept her body, her beautiful cells marinating in the stress hormones. And she knew from her study that if you marinate your beautiful cells in these stress hormones day in and day out, that these cells do begin to mutate. And so she worked hard to get out of this fight or flight and into a more parasympathetic state. And, you know, the ways in which she did that were just really felt something very universal, universally human, and how she did it. So that's why I was so touched by her story and started Cured with that.
And then did she live longer than that year?
Yeah, she did. Time began to go by. And then a few years later, she had an abdominal CT for unrelated reasons. And her doctors were shocked that the cancer was gone. And they thought that she must have been misdiagnosed. So they went back through the whole procedure of her diagnosis, and they realized that she really had been diagnosed correctly, but that her cancer was gone.
Spontaneously. 100% terminal death rate. You get 1 year and then spontaneously disappears.
Yep, that's right. Yeah. If you're on the medical side or the scientific side, we call these events spontaneous remission. And we were taught in medical school they have no medical or scientific value. If you're on the spiritual or religious side, we call these miracles or healing. But the truth is, these terms are just black boxes, and we need to be studying these cases because they have so much to show us. And there's patterns. When you see these cases of amazing recovery over and over, you start to see patterns. These people are doing things that they discover on their own, but there's a pattern to what they're doing.
And I love what you said, that today's miracle is tomorrow's normal. This show is all about how to be happy. And in order to be happy, we have to stop being unhappy. And that means we need to stop living in anxiety and fear and stop living with anger and resentment, to the things you said Claire had done. Stop being guilty and shameful and not enough and being so hard on ourselves. We need to eliminate those negative patterns. There's 8 primary negative patterns that we can get into. And then we need to start to choose some more harmonious patterns. One of the things I found so fascinating about your book is many of these stories had people either falling in love or finding friendship and community, or just choosing to be more connected with their own family who had always been there, but making a decision to start to lean into these relationships. And in one of the sections of the book, you were talking about a guy named Matt, and he literally said to you, "Love cured me." Happiness isn't just a feeling, it's a skill. And it starts with 5 pillars: authentic relationships, thriving fitness, achieving goals, conquering bad moods, and then choosing good ones. I'll teach you how to master all 5 pillars in my one-on-one happiness coaching. Let's talk. Grab a free 30-minute happiness consultation on my calendar at mattoneil.com/coaching. I want to talk about some of the commonalities. So I know you say in your book, not one size fits all, and one person's diet isn't necessarily going to be the cure-all diet for every single person. And each story does have its own uniqueness,
right.
But it does sound like diet is one of the commonalities. And it sounds like connection with loved ones and getting out of fight or flight and choosing some more loving emotions, forgiving ourselves, being kind to ourselves. These are things that promote healing. What are some other common things that you saw, some other common threads that you saw for people who were healing themselves? And again, if you're listening to this isn't just if you have a terminal illness or if you're afraid you'll get one day. This is how to live the healthiest, happiest life you can live today too.
Yes. I mean, this was kind of an empirical theology for me in the sense that I had been to seminary and med school and residency in psychiatry, and I really had this burning desire after reading all of these different opinions that many times seem to conflict. I wanted to understand what is the physical evidence for recovery in the most dire circumstances, and what are the factors associated with those recoveries. So it's a long story about how I got drawn into that research, but that's the basic drive for me in this. Now, every one of the things you mentioned is a huge factor, and there's a lot to every one of the things you mentioned. We could talk for hours just about nutrition alone, because nutrition is really important. 88%, I believe, of the people that I studied did become vegetarian and started consuming a lot more plants and less sugar, less processed foods. It's certainly true that trifecta of industry and the doctors who are paid to sign off on certain results, and then the way those two institutions interact with food lobbyists, that's nutrition science, but it's kind of a spin science or business science. It's got a business side to it. So it's very confusing for people because of that.
This was the big change. This was the big lifestyle change I made since reading the book is I said, Katie, we need to eat more diverse plants. And I end up with this big salad yesterday, and it's got purple and green and yellow and all these colors. I look at it and I'm so proud, and I'm showing it off to people. I'm like, look how colorful this salad is. And my wife has been having different salads each day. Yesterday we had a strawberry spinach salad. And so we are committed to eating more diverse plants as a way to keep our nutrition high.
Yes. And that's, our body loves that. And so and I think our taste buds, they adapt quickly. And so for me, it was a hard climb to learn because I'd been given so much miseducation. I could go into all kinds of ways in which my medical education actually was completely upside down around that. But I think it's important to understand, even though most of the people I studied did change their diet at a really deep level, and there's real patterns to what they changed, even though the superficial levels were different in their dietary changes, it's also important to understand that it's really not just about the food. Food is love. Food is connection. It is what we share with people. The rituals around food are really important. And if we are sharing community with people who we feel tense with, that's very different than experiencing food as love or food as something that nourishes us at a really deep level. And so I always encourage people.
This might be if there's the chocolate birthday cake.
Yes.
of your child's birthday.
Yep.
It probably is a good idea to take a few bites of the birthday cake.
Yep.
And be there with the child and the family and feel that love. That might even be more nourishing than saying, no, I'm going to deprive myself of that sugar because it's bad for me.
Yes. Over 100 years ago, the average American consumed 4 pounds of sugar a year, not a big deal. The average American now consumes 154 pounds of sugar a year. And I could give you all kinds of physiological detail about what it means for these sharp granules to be coursing at a high density in your bloodstream and just causing cut after cut after cut in your beautiful blood vessels, and how then your immune cells have to come in to repair those cuts And you have scar on top of scar on top of scar over the years, and that is what is called atherosclerosis. So yes, sugar's a problem. However, what gives you joy when you're celebrating that birthday party with your child? Joy and connection is what gets you out of the fight or flight. I told the story in Cured about Roseto, Pennsylvania, I believe, the Italian immigrants in Pennsylvania who had such a low rate of heart disease, and doctors wanted to understand why this little protected community of Italian immigrants wasn't having much heart disease. And they studied them, and they thought they must be eating really healthy stuff. Well, it turns out they're frying their meat in lard, they're having cigars, they're drinking wine, they're doing everything exactly wrong, but they were sharing love with each other. They were in a true community, with sitting on their porches, talking to each other in the evenings. And so, again, food is love, and we want to make sure that when a person decides to make a dietary change, don't do it as something you're giving up. Look to do it in a way that you're giving yourself more dense nutrition. And so if you're doing it to give yourself, your body, something, that's really different than if you're doing it because you're giving something up, and it's going to make it a lot harder.
Yeah, you mentioned this a lot in the book, that it was really our attitude that made the biggest difference. And so our attitude towards this food, saying, this food is actually nourishing my body, and this is me loving myself.
Yes.
Eating this nutritious food, rather than, oh, I have to do this stinking diet.
Right.
And I hate it. And I miss all the stuff I used to do. And so then we would be in a negative state of mind, and that might not be a healing state. Another place you said this about was stress. Can you talk a little bit about how stress can be toxic versus how stress could actually be a beneficial type of stress?
Our bodies, our immune cells, we know on the basis of really thorough laboratory research and clinical research that our bodies and our cells thrive when they are in the parasympathetic milieu, where oxytocin is being secreted, serotonin is being secreted.
And for our listener who may not know what parasympathetic means, what is a layman's term for being in parasympathetic or not?
To be in parasympathetic means that you're not in fight or flight. It means that your body is not registering acute safety risk.
But yeah, I feel like so much of the world, I feel like I live in fight or flight many days when I don't need to. Why are we in fight or flight? We live in a very safe time. Why don't we feel safe? Why are we living all anxious?
Well, that's a great question. I mean, there's a lot to this. The world is becoming more safer over the eons. We are safer today than we were 1,000 years ago. And we're safer today than we were 6,000 years ago, where child sacrifice, for example, was the norm of the day. So yes, we're safer in many ways, but there's a lot of stress with, if you have an hour commute in rush hour traffic and you've got your kids you're trying to take care of, maybe you have a parent whose health is starting to fail. Maybe there's stresses in your relationship, because the truth is, where we used to live in tribes and villages, we now live in isolated little family units, and we're trying to do more than we can possibly do. It takes a village to raise children. It takes a village for a couple to survive. It takes a village for all of us to do the things we do. And most of us aren't living in well-connected villages. We're living in more fragmented, lonely lives.
And then we need to be constantly entertained. And so we put on these TV shows that are high stress and high anxiety because that's entertaining to us. And then we scroll through these social media things that are telling us that we're not enough, which drives up our stress. I need to earn more. I need to buy that. I need to fit in more. I need to go on more vacations. Look at all these people on vacations. I'm not eating the right foods or going to the right restaurants. And all of a sudden, we're just stressed out all the time.
Yep, that's absolutely right. I mean, and the news leads with the mantra, if it bleeds, it leads, because they know they're going to get eyeballs and activate the fight or flight thing. So 9 out of 10 news articles, 9 out of 10 media postings, whether it's social media or the news media, is fight or flight activating, because that gets eyeballs. But the problem is it's not good for your body.
So this is where disease has a chance to have a heyday. Ever feel anxious, upset, or maybe like something's missing? The problem is never your external circumstances. It's always your internal mood. In my best-selling book, Good Mood Revolution, Igniting the Power of Conscious Happiness, I teach you the exact methods to own your moods and control your best life. Go on Amazon today and get yourself a copy, because your best life can't wait. I'd love for you to talk about some of the findings that you found about people getting themselves into the parasympathetic relaxed state. What are some things that our listener and that I can do on a daily or a weekly basis to calm myself back down, to get back into that parasympathetic, relaxed, calm state? And where I think you said it in the book, the parasympathetic state is the health state. It's where all
Correct.
the cells can come back to health.
And that's the healing state. That's the rest and digest state. That's where the body has recovered from the tiger on the savannah. Tiger and the threat are gone. Now one can rest. Their digestion can go back into place, but one can heal. And the healing occurs in a parasympathetic state. So, there's a lot to this. I told the story of Barbara Fredrickson's research, for example, and it's very consistent with the work you're doing and writing about with your Good Mood Revolution book. It's about how social connection, whether it's the cashier at the drugstore or the grocery store, just making eye contact and making an authentic connection, how that loving connection is as powerful as a really loving connection with a partner of 20 years or more.
That was one of my favorite parts of the whole book. I loved it. And you said love doesn't have to be this romantic love. And I think you may have mentioned something about somebody that you had met, a grandmother pushing a baby in a stroller.
Yes.
And you just struck up a conversation with her, and the baby smiled at you, and you had this very loving conversation with this woman that you didn't even know her name, and she didn't know your name. And then she went on her way and you went on your way. But that moment was a moment of love. And that moment of love is something that we really could choose any moment that we're out there in the world.
Yeah. And Barbara Fredrickson has this phrase called micro moments of positivity resonance. And that's love, right? I mean, when we make an authentic connection with somebody, we make real eye contact, we share a moment that we can laugh, and it lightens the mood for both of us. And it does great things for our physiology and those kinds of things, whether it's with just a woman walking down the street with the baby carriage and her granddaughter, or with the bank teller, or with our partner or children. These things do wonders. And they always feel better.
I always feel better when I'm chatty with the person at the grocery store.
Yeah.
Or if I'm creating conversation with the person that's waiting on us at the restaurant. It just feels good to me to actually have relationships with these people. And I never considered that was good for my health. I just thought I like it when I'm chatty.
Yeah.
I feel better. I feel happier. And then now you're giving me the science behind it, that actually every single time I'm having a genuine conversation with a stranger, that is an act of micro love, and that's putting me into the parasympathetic healing condition in my body, and that's optimal for my cells to be their healthiest.
Yes, that's absolutely right. Beautifully said.
So another thing you talked about was meditation.
Yes.
Deep breathing. And you talked about the vagus nerve. So talk with us a little bit about meditation or deep breathing in the vagus nerve and how all this can help us with our health.
And there's a lot to consider here. I spoke in Cured about the loving kindness meditation, for example, which helps one bathe one's cells in these positive parasympathetic hormones. And that's a way of short-circuiting and stopping the self-criticism that causes so much harm in people's bodies that causes an inflammatory state in the body. And so to find a path to heal that criticism, that self-criticism, is often such a big deal, where a person can experience the dignity and the value, the beauty and goodness that they bring into the world, not because of anything they're doing, but simply because they're here. Now, one of the things that I worked on in seminary is what are the differences between different kinds of meditation. So if the meditation is one that's associated with spiritual bypassing, where it's trying to anesthetize you from feeling feelings, then I would have concerns about that. The whole point is our feelings were given to us for a reason, all of them, and we want to find a way to cultivate the positive emotions, but heal what the negative emotions are telling us still exists. And so I'm not for a meditation that anesthetizes us. I'm not for a spirituality that anesthetizes us or makes us conflict avoidant. I'm for an approach in meditation or spirituality that helps us have our whole range of feelings and learn with maturity how to manage them and work with them so that we hear the messages that our bodies are sending us and then use those to heal our lives and our bodies and our minds, if that makes sense, and to heal our nervous systems.
One of the things you said was taking deep breaths is a way to, oh man. And there was something else so I want to go back to the deep breathing, because I did some deep breathing today, just in the car. I was going to meet somebody for an interview, and on the drive there, I had some time, and I could feel my chest was a little tight. So I could feel that there was a little bit of fight or flight, and I don't even know why. There's nothing stressful happening in my life right now that I could pinpoint. So I just started to take deep breaths, an in count of 5, and then I held for 4, and then a long, slow 7, 8 count out, and then I repeated it. I probably did this for 10 minutes on the drive, and I felt amazing. By the time I got done with all that deep breathing, I felt amazing, right? And it all of a sudden that kind of tightness in my chest was gone. But the other thing you had said, I think it was about loving kindness, was that the more we practice it, the better we get at it. And in the study that you had seen, people who already came in with a really high level of, and I don't know what the register was, but it was basically loving spirit already. The more they practiced it, the more gains they made. And it was like this upward spiral. Could you talk to those things a little bit?
Yeah. I mean, the upward spiral of loving kindness, where the more we connect with people authentically, the more that releases us into a parasympathetic upward spiral. And the more that we access the parasympathetic, the more we want to connect with others in an authentic way. And so both of those feed off of each other. And the more one moves up, the faster and deeper it becomes. And so, if somebody has been through a lot and they've kind of lost contact with themselves and others for a while, that's okay, because that happens to all of us. One can start anywhere in the spiral, but it has immediate and lasting benefits when we start to do that again. And so the more we can let ourselves begin to do that in a way that feels authentic and right for us and like an opportunity and not yet another burden, our bodies love that.
So these findings about healing were surprising to me. The nutrition was not. The other aspects of the book, like the rest of the after section 1, everything thereon was like a surprise, which is why I was just so in love with the book and just loving your research. What surprised you most as you started to study spontaneous remission?
What surprised me most, I think I'd have to say, I mean, this has been such a journey for me. I think I'd have to say the 4th pillar, the healing of identity, and how big of a deal that is, because that's the point where people would often sit up, they would get a light in their eyes, and they say, this is why I'm so grateful for this illness, because it helped me understand my value. It helped me understand that I have something really important to do in the world or to bring into the world. And to watch how their vitality increased as they talked about that and how they spoke about the role that played. That often meant healing past traumas. It meant doing some real work, hard work internally to clear out those blockages to experiencing love and an experience of their dignity and value.
For the person listening, how could they lean into their true identity or their authentic self now without a diagnosis?
Yeah, I mean, I think some of the things we're talking about with genuine connection with others, learning to decrease the volume of the self-criticizing thoughts that many of us live with. The loving kindness meditation is a way into that in a non-spiritually bypassing way. Again, healing the traumas, there's a lot to that. So that part is about removing the blockages to experiencing our value. Now, different messages are needed for different people, right? If narcissism, for example, is on a scale of 1 to 10, and a person is really depressed, doesn't know their value, and they're in the range, say, of 1 to 3, then they're going to need some help experiencing their value and their dignity and waking up to the vitality and truth of who they are in a way that they don't question that. Somebody who is in the sweet spot of 4 to 7 on the narcissism scale, then they already are there and they need to learn how to experience their value deeper and understand the ways in which one can lose that path a bit. If someone is up around 8 to 10 on the narcissism spectrum, they need to be brought down a few notches in order to learn a more real understanding of value that's not based upon pushing someone down in order that they can feel better about themselves. And so they will need to come down a few notches, but in order to realize that we all have value, because the narcissist style will tend to view self-esteem as something that's measured by pushing someone else down in some way, whether it's because of skin color or some other mask that they're wearing that's superficial and doesn't have anything to do with their value as a person.
Yeah. Yeah. For instance, my dad would see people who had money and figure they had to cheat and be crooked in order to get there. And so he was always putting down anyone with money because they couldn't have been good guys.
Right. Well, and that probably reflected some story for him, right? So and maybe
right. It may have. There may have been a story there about somebody who or it was him not wanting to look in the mirror and saying that he actually wanted to have some more money.
Right.
And that there might be some work to do on that. So it's easier to try to tear them down in his mind that he didn't want it anyway because he was a good guy.
Yeah, right. There's so much to that. I think my parents' values were God and carpet, and they certainly said that they valued God. But if you look at what was really going on, they sure valued that carpet a lot.
The carpet was there. The carpet was highly valued. Well, Jeff, I've just really valued you and your work, and it's just such a treasure what you're doing. As I said before we got on the call, you have saved so many lives that you don't even know about, and it's just got to feel just so fulfilling to know that you're out there making a true difference in all these people's lives, mine included.
Well, and so you are too, Matt, by just helping me get the word out on this. And I so appreciate you having me on your podcast. I appreciate the work you're doing and the view you bring. It must be so helpful to the people that are listening to you.
It's fun. It's fun to be, and what all the stuff we talked about today is like, hey, let's be more loving. Let's be more connected. Let's enjoy the people around us more, dive into these relationships, stop being self-critical. This isn't just to be healthy. Doing all these things actually lets us enjoy our life a lot more too at the same time. It's what came first, the enjoyment or the health?
Absolutely.
Maybe the happier we are, the more authentically joyful we are, the healthier we get to be at the same time. And that's kind of cool, because
it is cool.
Being healthy is fun, but having fun is also fun.
Sure is. And like I said, I think some of the people I studied could have eaten cat food and gotten better. So I think it really is exactly about what you're saying.
And if you loved this conversation, Jeff is speaking with one of my favorite organizations, the Sophia Institute, on March 12th and March 19th. And Jeff, how obviously go out, get this book. It's got over 1,000 5-star reviews on Amazon because it is incredible. How else could people get in touch or learn more?
They can go to my website, drjeffreyrediger.com. And again, thank you for mentioning the teaching I'm doing with Carol, and she's fabulous. And I'm looking forward to doing that. And that'll be really nice. And we're just trying to get the word out there. We are at an exciting time in medicine, the very beginning of a new era where we actually study health and well-being and how to flourish and how to get into states that our bodies and our nervous systems love. And that's a really different set of questions than just getting a diagnosis and taking a medication.
Jeff, I appreciate you so much, man. What a powerful conversation with Dr. Jeff Rediger. This wasn't just about health. It was about taking back control of your body and your mind and your life. Here's the key takeaways. People are healing from incurable diseases, and doctors just don't study why. But your body can heal itself. It just needs the right conditions. Stress, fear, negativity, they're killing you. Get out of fight or flight. Love, joy, and connection are not just nice to have. They're actually necessary for your health. Your thoughts create chemistry in your body. So what are you thinking about? Nutrition matters, but attitude matters more. Food should be love, not punishment. Small moments of real connection equal a huge impact on your health. Deep breathing, meditation, and relaxation aren't woo-woo. They're science. And today's miracles are tomorrow's normal. The future of medicine is already here. So question to ponder this week. If your body had the power to heal, are you helping it now or are you hurting it now? And think about this. If you just love being happy and you want to be healthier, be sure to hit subscribe to Good Mood Revolution so that you get happiness tips that make you healthier every single week. That's it for today. Keep choosing happiness and keep your body in a state of strength and power. I'll see you next time.